Hey again everyone, Lex here, and today, as the last of the Druids update draws closer and closer, or I guess the league is called Fate of the Vol now officially, seeming like Incursion rather than Delve is going to be on the table judging from the teaser, but anyways, in this current league, I am still shield bashing my way through this hardcore solo self-found challenge run of the Path of Exile 2 campaign. If you are just joining us, I'll give you a quick explanation of the run and the rules. GGG added this shield bash ability to raise shield in patch 0.2, which can be triggered after you active block an attack, and it has very high stun buildup, but very low damage and low area of effect, which is what has been making this run such a challenge. So the two rules I'm following for this challenge run are these. 1, I cannot use any other skill other than this shield bash, and 2, I cannot trade, which is a hard set rule anyway since I went solo self-found in the hardcore league. I just thought the run would be too easy if I had the option to buy high armor shields from other players. And that's pretty much it. Like parts 1 and 2, this part 3 video will focus on Act 3, and we'll start by talking about how progressing through the act felt generally from zone to zone, and then in the second part of the video we'll go over each boss fight individually in the order that I fought them. I know a lot of you watching are curious to see how the mighty Silverfist fight went, and well, I'll just say that there was some clenching involved. Alright guys, we're going to go over how progressing and clearing through these zones went in Act 3, which I would say honestly overall felt the most difficult and dangerous out of all of the acts so far. And even compared to the boss fights during this act, there were only a couple where I felt as much tension as certain zones in Act 3. You can probably guess one of them, honestly. Also, I'll talk about my gear and build progression as well as the Trial of Chaos, which I did around level 40, so honestly not very over-leveled for the quest version of the Trial, which is level 38. I was definitely a little on edge during that one. I probably should have been more over-leveled for that, to be honest. But that's enough yapping. Let's talk about bashing through Act 3. So Act 3 is a pretty long one, and I'll keep this as concise as possible, but I definitely noticed a bit of a bump up in difficulty after arriving here fresh from Act 2. Both from like a mob health and stun buildup perspective. It looked like pretty early on I was going to have to find a way to bump up my damage and stun threshold to the next tier, essentially. Clearing the first zone was a little slow but pretty easy overall, was still rolling with Brutality and Bleed 1 while bashing my way to the Zicoatl camp. And boy, finally a little bit of luck here. I was actually able to craft a decent upgrade to my current shield as soon as I arrived. I just saw 2 bases from the vendor. One I alked and it rolled okay, but the other was a magic quality shield that just had some better armor rolls than my Act 2 shield after being upgraded. Went from 215 armor to 248, so that's just more damage, but I would say most importantly, using this higher item level shield granted me 3 support gem slots instead of 2, which is obviously huge since I couldn't use Jeweler's Orbs to add slots onto this skill in Act 2. I had to wait until now since it's through pure item level. Having already found a level 3 support gem, I just went with Close Combat, probably the most obviously beneficial one because it's just more damage at close range, and the shield bash is very close range, so it's just an easy increased 20% damage with bashes, which not only means those will hit harder, but so do our bleeds. But yeah, Jungle Ruins was pretty straightforward. Clearing felt pretty good starting out, being able to wipe many mobs in 1 or 2 shield bashes with the bleed. And I also ran into the mighty Silverfist very early on while exploring and just fought him straight up. We'll talk about how that went in the next section of the video. Venom Crypts was also just straight clearing, nothing super eventful. Big boys once again kinda dealing some big stun buildup, so eventually made sure to take care of that on my gear and during a respec later on. And obviously for this quest reward, I went with the stun threshold tonic. Infested Barrens was also fine. Really the zone just feels like a crossroads to some more interesting areas like the Chimeral Wetlands, which was the next area I tackled. It was overall pretty straightforward and easy, really just made sure to full clear each of these zones, and I also found an Abyssal Depths here, which was pretty packed, and those Abyssal Rares, man, they can take a bit of time to take down with this meme of a character, but we got there. Azek Bog was actually a really fun zone somehow. All of the monsters there seemed to have pretty quick attacks or were ranged or both in some cases. Just felt like I didn't have to wait long to shield bash in any fight. Was pretty rapid and felt really good. Honestly, really enjoyed clearing this one. Jaquani's Machinarium was alright. Those big stone sentinels, no surprise, hit really hard and had some significant stun buildup, so I had to watch my stun meter a little more closely during this zone. But yeah, I was actually surprised at how much damage the shield bash was doing against those mobs in particular. It was nice being able to rapidly bash through this one, as the Stone Sentinels and the Rusted Dynagolem mobs here used to have attacks that were unblockable. The Matlan Waterways is a small zone, but a fun one. It kind of reminded me of the Azek Bog, where it felt like all the monsters there were pretty quick to the draw as far as hitting me went, so I could rapidly shield bash in some fights and it felt pretty fast to get through. Though again, I would overall not call this build very fast, not in the slightest. Had to pay a little attention to the casters here, as they like to cast these bone walls that you have to hit to destroy. Could like get imprisoned if you're not paying attention. I think Azek Bog casters also cast this, but I noticed it here more. So it was shortly after the Matlan Waterways that I decided to tackle the Trial of Chaos, and this was the first time I felt like I was playing things a little risky in this act and I had to focus up. It's like that guy leaning forward in the chair meme. That was literally me after I realized, oh, this trial is kind of close to my character level and monsters aren't dying as quickly as I thought, and they kind of hit hard. And the trial makes my character weaker and weaker as we go on. Whoops. The trial that had me most on edge was the Corruption Dais room, where you had to touch that obelisk in the middle and fight waves of monsters. Yeah, that felt like it could get overwhelming if I wasn't careful, since this is still a low damage build overall and it started getting crowded pretty quickly. But at some point I just started applying bleed to what monsters I could and running in a circle, and eventually the timer ran out, so I was good to go. And overall the Chaos Trial turned out to be fine, thankfully. I rose to the challenge and got through it at level 40. Again, we'll talk about the bosses in the next part of the video, but I literally breathed a sigh of relief when I saw that it was just the Chimera again and not the dreaded Tornado Vulture. Though to be fair, I was ready to fight that one too. I was just, you know, happier to have the easier, less risky fight, and having hulking form as a reward was a big one. I was really happy after I got that noticeable jump in damage, AoE, tankiness, and so on. Alright guys, the Drowned City. This is where things got even more difficult, and I'd say this was probably the scariest zone for this build so far in this playthrough. You can probably guess why, but I'll just say it right off the bat. It's the River Hags. They have this ball of water move that'll just drown your character in place if you stay inside of it too long. It's just insta-death basically, and the ball follows you around while they cast slowing whirlpools on the ground. It felt super risky fighting near these things, especially in crowded situations you could potentially get cornered or body blocked in. They also don't have any hit attacks you can take advantage of, at least none that I saw from experimenting, so I opted to leave many of them behind, especially if they were rares. There was just no chance I'd be killing them with this build. But I killed a couple of normal versions, I think, when I was able to get some other mobs near them to hit them enough, and I was sure that they couldn't cast the water ball. They can actually mess up this cast if they cast it into a wall or something, and then it goes on cooldown, so you are safe to hit them for a bit. But yeah, definitely wanted to get out of this zone as quickly as possible. Still mostly cleared it though. I obviously want as many options for loot and gold as possible in solo self-found, and once I reached the apex of filth, I once again breathed a sigh of relief because things were a lot less risky and much easier here. Still no walk in the park though. Those filthy crones can cast some nasty minus chaos resist curses that make them hit dangerously hard, and those foul sages that shoot out those, I don't know, red angry webs or whatever, yeah, those only deal damage over time, so you can't block those, but when you get up close to them, they start smacking you, so that you can bash them down with. Temple of Kopek was next. Not a whole lot to talk about here, just breezed on through, didn't get sunburnt too badly. Had to be a little careful of those guys that whirl that thing around and hit you quickly with the fireballs. If they are hitting you from behind, it can hurt, but if they are in front of you, kinda useful to use them as a way to bash other mobs down. And then we have Uxmal, big zone that was also pretty easy, another one that felt like there were plenty of attacks to take advantage of, so that was nice. Got through it relatively quickly. Same with Agarat, to be honest, just a pretty smooth clearing experience. Got those extra 2 skill points from cutting that big heart, and the mobs were manageable overall. Just the blood priests towards the second half of the zone were actually a little more concerning. Quite a few of their abilities don't seem to be blockable, and they had a lot of life, so I prioritized taking them down quickly when I could in group fights. Alright, last zone, the Black Chambers. This was fittingly one of the more difficult zones in the act, and I would say not as scary as the Drowned City, but this was definitely second place. This was all because the mobs are just straight up tougher. They hit harder, have a lot of health, some of them have sizable energy shields, some have kind of unpredictable attacks, etc. My damage isn't high and has never felt high in this playthrough, but this zone made it feel like it took another step down with how tanky most of the enemies were here. That said, I still enjoyed clearing this zone as it felt like a good build up to Doryani, and I like that it felt like a fitting end to this act. it really did ramp up the tension a bit, knowing that I had to focus up again before the big boss fight. And that's pretty much how the act went overall, guys. Let's move on to the next part of the video where we go over the bosses, because there were some pretty spicy ones this time around. Alright, as always, we're going to go over each boss in the order that I fought them, what the fight was like overall, how blockable their movesets were, and their red animation attacks were relevant, because as I've shown you in the previous two videos, some of these are just straight up blockable or partially blockable. Oh, and of course, very importantly, how long each boss fight took. Honestly, I don't think we had any crazy long ones like the first two acts, so that was a welcome relief. Last thing I'll mention, and some of you may have guessed this already, but I chose to skip one optional boss during this act, and that would be Xyclucian the Forge Master. A lot of his boss fight is a damage check, and damage is not very high on this build, so I opted to avoid this boss fight because, I'll be honest, it just felt like certain death by the lava that puts this fight on a timer. I can't be limited in my time with this build for any boss fight, at least currently. But that's enough explanation. Let's talk about the King of the Mystery skin. I mean, Rootdredge. So I'll be honest, I wasn't sure what to expect with this guy. He's usually a pretty quick, pretty easy win in most of my runs. However, with this shield bash run, this was actually a pretty torturous fight. He obviously has a pretty sizable energy shield, which is annoying to cut through anytime you aren't being aggressive enough, but he also had way less blockable attacks than I thought he would. Like, obviously he has the same staff poke that the King in the Mists does, but I figured I'd get a ton of shield bashes from the ads he summons and the detonations from those ads. But I didn't really. They love to just stand there gawking at me as I'm waiting for a shield bash trigger, and the only explosions I could block and bash off of were the ones where he would mass detonate them, which is unfortunate since he most commonly used a spell where he folds up a zombie into a ball and makes them seek you like a missile and then blow up. And this, for some reason, is not blockable at all. Very strange, and if it was blockable, this would have saved so much time during the fight. Once some other mob types started joining the fight, like the big boys and the zombies wielding weapons, bashes came out a bit faster, but this was overall a slog, man. He has that AoE slam red attack, which I don't think is blockable if that same move by the King in the Mists is anything to go by, but I didn't actually try blocking it, so I could be wrong here. Anyways, longer fight that took 11 minutes and 14 seconds to get through, and it was again a not very exciting slog to get through. I wish that the homing zombie attack was blockable, but oh well, what a way to start the act, right? Alright, time to get this one out of the way. The next boss was Mighty Silverfist, and you've probably put this together by now, but no, I did not die to this guy. However, as you saw in the intro footage, I did get hit from him. I nervously tried to block one of his red animation attacks for science, then decided against it at the last second and ended up getting clipped by it and blasted down to 50 health, you know, no big deal. But hey, this is where my build came in and saved me. After that, I decided not to try blocking his red attacks again, neither the overhead slam or the whirling swings into overhead slam combo. Aside from that one blunder, didn't get hit again, and honestly, I won't say that he was easy because I was moderately stressed the whole fight knowing that one mistake could cost me the run, so that was definitely something in the back of my mind. But overall, I just treated him like a Dark Souls boss, just timed my rolls to the side, kept circling around to his back and bashing any non-red attacks that he had, which were mostly just quick side swings with the column or his little roll he likes to do sometimes. Overall, pretty quick fight at 4 minutes and 55 seconds, but unlike some other fights I talked about in earlier acts where they felt shorter than they actually were, this definitely felt longer than the recorded time with how clenched I was the whole time. Next up, the Chimera Xyclucian. I don't know how to pronounce that, but enjoy those attempts. This boss was overall quite easy, I'd have to say. Just took a while since he has some longer animations and some hit attacks that are harder to take advantage of, and obviously it took a while to get him down from those ruined buildings when he jumped up on top of them. But yeah, I mean, I don't think there is a single red animation attack here, at least anymore. Everything is blockable. His big ground slam, which I took advantage of every time, his shock breath, all parts of that one, his flame breath and chilling breath, and his venomous centipede tail spit, though you definitely want to stay out of the pools of venom that are left on the ground. The flame breath was a little weird to take advantage of. If you were too close, you actually wouldn't block the attack because it wouldn't hit you, and the chilling breath was annoying because I'd clearly blocked the attack, but the freezing ground would just keep growing even though he had been interrupted and stopped breathing it out. Come on guys, I stopped him, give me a break. Mostly kidding, but I don't think it should be like that, to be honest. Ultimately, this was another longer fight, took about 11 minutes and 11 seconds to take this one down, and this would have been a lot shorter if not for this meme of a build that took forever to collapse those buildings he likes to hop on. Next up, Ignagduk, or Ignagduk, the names. Anyways, I was a little cautious going into this fight. I didn't feel like I'd be able to block many attacks on this one, but was pleasantly surprised at how much there was to block during this one, especially in phase 2. I was initially annoyed at the damn riding around on the broomstick bit she would perform in phase 1. There's definitely some hitbox jank going on when you try to block this one and bash her as she collides with you, but eventually I was able to bash her off at some point fairly consistently. But yeah, this fight in a nutshell was completely blockable. Every hit attack she used was blockable and could be bashed off of. Any of her red rune attacks where the bone spines would shoot up out of the ground was blockable. In phase 2, all of her fire projectiles were blockable. That kind of scary flame tunnel move she uses is also blockable. Her little flamethrower attack is blockable, etc. Plenty of opportunities to bash off of here. The only attack that isn't blockable is when she'd stick one arm out to each side one after another, then bring them to the middle to summon those two intersecting lines of fire. That's just pure ignite damage and you can't block it. That's about it. Really had fun with this fight, to be honest. Took about 7 minutes and 29 seconds to get through, but I enjoyed almost all of it. It only started feeling a little like a slog towards the end when I had figured out what all I could bash off of. Next we have Blackjaw. Normally a fight I am very cautious about, but as a running theme with this playthrough, actually, almost every fight I'm nervous about turns out to be a breeze, and this was definitely one of them. I mean, I think all of his attacks were blockable, guys. Not a single one I couldn't take advantage of. All of his standard swings were pretty easy to bash off of. His flame breath was kind of hard to trigger bashes off of, truth be told. Definitely one of those where if you're too close it doesn't hit situations again, but man, everything else was fair game. Even his scary triple slam combo was bashable. He wouldn't get mini stun during it as well, so it was just 3 free shield bashes every time. There is another combo where he lights his axe on fire, but I don't think he ever got the combo off during this fight because I just mini stun interrupted him every time he started it. There was one ground slam in phase 2 that seemed like it would hit behind you if you were too close to him while blocking, but it was still blockable, so that was just a positioning thing on my end to be aware of. I think the only thing I had to pay real attention to was the stun buildup. Again, it can pile up quickly with his damage. Oh, and after reviewing the footage, there was one attack that was seemingly unblockable, or at least very hard to block, where he creates this little ring of fire on the ground around him and shoots out flame projectiles. That one was a little scary, but didn't even do that much damage overall, so I just ran in a semicircle around him when he'd started up, and it was kind of whatever to me. Blackjaw took 4 minutes and 11 seconds to take down. Pretty quick overall. Just had to make sure I wasn't getting heavy stunned and to just block everything because I know he hurts if you actually get hit by his attacks. Next up, Zicoatl, Warden of the Core. So initially I thought this was going to be a pretty easy, reasonably short fight, but it ended up taking quite a bit longer than I thought for a kind of annoying reason. I wouldn't say this is a design flaw or anything, this is just a side effect of this build. So basically this boss has a blockable attack where it shoots the 3 right or 3 left serpents on its back straight forward as a long-reaching melee attack. The fact that this is blockable is good, however, more often than not, this attack would shove me out of shield bash range, wasting an opportunity for a shield bash, which was super annoying since it used this attack often. There is like a sweet spot towards the middle right or middle left of this boss, depending on which version of the attack it uses, where you can block and get a bash off, but this window is very narrow, so you have to be very precise about it, and more often than not, I was just shoved away. Other than that, no true unblockables, guys. Every other move can be blocked. The slow snake punches that have a bit of stun buildup, the little lightning lasers, the big wind-up red rune smash or whatever you want to call it, and the laser beam attacks, which was nice to get multiple bashes off of. I don't even think you have to face any correct direction here. You can just block and bash if you're hit by the lasers wherever, whenever. But yeah, literally everything is fair game. I don't think I ran into a single attack I couldn't block. Definitely not a difficult boss, but it uses that red rune slam attack a lot, which has a long animation. And getting shoved around by those serpents made this guy take 10 minutes and 5 seconds to complete overall. A little more of a boring fight for this run and build. Alright, technically the next fight during this run was Uxmal, the Beastlord, but I'm not going to spend a ton of time here since it's basically just a clone of the Chimera fight all over again, so everything I said about that fight is relevant here, and that is you can block all of its attacks. One interesting note though, this boss actually has red animation windups for 2 of the Chimera's moves, the big ground slam and the ice breath, while the Chimera in the Chimeral Wetlands does not have this red animation windup before those same moves. Strangely enough, there's no difference in blocking them either. They are straight up blockable, just like the normal Chimera. So I'm not sure exactly what's going on here, but hey, I'm not complaining because I needed all the bashes I could get. I was also able to use the flame turrets from the Chaos Trial modifiers to get a bunch of bashes in towards the end, which definitely sped things up, so that was also a funny unintentional bonus. Uxmal was a much shorter fight than the Chimera, thankfully, at 6 minutes and 40 seconds, probably because we didn't have to destroy those dumb stone buildings that like to stand on before, so it was nice fighting this version even with all the random Chaos Trial crap applied and blowing up the arena. The Queen of Filth was next, and funny story, I totally forgot to hit the well after finding a life flask upgrade, so as you can see at the beginning here, I essentially had no healing, and in this moment I definitely thought of Jazzarus, who frequently hates on the well mechanic in the hideouts, because I couldn't have agreed more when I realized my slip up here. But it turned out totally fine. This was an easy fight, as I expected it would be. Was just a little tense knowing I had no healing if I messed up, so I was a little on edge, but I started slowly regaining them as she summoned those adds and felt more and more relieved as the fight went on. Anyways, to keep things simple guys, all attacks are once again blockable here. Literally every swing she throws out you can block and bash, so I had at it. She stomps the ground to cast random curses every now and then, but I found them to be mostly inconsequential. Even the mushrooms that were summoned on the ground barely detonated since we didn't move much while I was just bash locking her. Pretty chill fight, I gotta say. Not too fast, not too slow at 5 minutes and 54 seconds here. Again, I thought this would be an easy boss, and she was, but that lack of healing in the beginning definitely caught me off guard. Alright, Ketzuli, High Priest of the Sun. This was a pretty cool fight, I gotta say. Had a lot of fun with this one, and he also, much like many of the bosses this act, has an almost completely blockable moveset. The only move that can't be blocked isn't even a red animation attack, it's his little fire beam that he channels and tracks you with every now and then. Pretty easy to avoid though, and it can't be blocked because it's just pure ignite damage. But yep, everything else can be blocked. His self-explosion sequences were great for multiple bashes. You just had to follow along with him a bit since he's kind of zoomy while doing this. His rapid fire flame bullets machine gun attack, very bashable and better if you hit him early since it interrupts the attack and the rest don't hit you. His traveling fireballs across the room attack is also blockable. Hard to bash him off of this one sometimes, but at least you can block these while facing any direction. And yeah, I think that covers the majority of what I used to kill this guy with. Oh, there are the black holes that travel around the arena, but honestly, those don't even do damage. They just slow you, so they're kind of whatever. No big. One last important note, I ended up switching to pin 2 over close combat mid-fight for this one, which I think was the right choice due to two things. One, he has pretty long animation attacks for most of his moves, so you want to be hitting as much as possible. A heavy stun animation would just set things back. And two, he has a pretty big energy shield, so I wanted to make sure I was dealing damage as often as I could so that wouldn't start recharging. I definitely learned my lesson from King of the Mists way back in Act 1. This was another easy but unfortunately long fight at 13 minutes and 20 seconds, but I don't know, I wasn't totally bored by this one, maybe a bit towards the end, but I was definitely trying to focus and make sure I didn't miss any opportunities for damage because of the energy shield mostly. Alright guys, Viper Napuatzi was next, and I have to say, this was easily the most fun fight I've had during this playthrough. No joke, this fight felt like the perfect balance of easy attacks to block and bash from, riskier attacks to block, and being able to use that mini stun to stop a few of her channeling attacks. So many mechanics to take advantage of here, and it made for a very active fight, I guess I'd call it. Hell, at one point I even started using the soldier attacks near the edge of the arena to get some extra bashes in when I could get them to hit me. So yeah, I am not being sarcastic when I say that this fight was just a purely enjoyable one from start to finish. Almost all of her attacks are blockable and can be taken advantage of, but some of her swings have some weird timings, like when she's twirling her spear around for one of her attack combos. Just have to focus up and watch for the block sound or animation. But there are also many attacks that are straightforward to block, like the big poison explosion she blows the ground up with now and then, the little green poison projectiles that bounce around the arena, totally blockable, super easy actually if you're right in front of her as she summons them. The poison spray is blockable, the lightning spear throw is blockable, her rapid poison throw attack is blockable. There are so many attacks to take advantage of here. Her channeling rain of fireballs and chaos balls is also blockable, and on top of that, you can interrupt the channel if you hit her while she is floating around. Yes, you can still hit her, and I thought this was just awesome. Perfect use of the mini stun on the shield bash. She has one red animation attack that I saw where she channels and summons a big, like, twin serpent poison projectile that shoots out. I didn't get a chance to block that one, and she didn't use it again for the rest of the fight, so jury's out on that being blockable or not. You obviously have to stay away from her spear when it's in the ground. It just emits a poison aura that does damage over time, but she also has a move where she floats around and buffs her troops to shoot poison in a pattern. This might be a hot take, but I actually love dodging this sequence, and with this build, we can just block most of these hits as long as you are facing the right direction. The one hesitation is the final part of this sequence where both sides of the arena shoot this stuff from one end to the other. You just gotta roll through the attack and avoid it, to be honest. You can block half of this attack if you are facing one of these directions where the stabs are coming from, but overall, I think it just makes sense to roll it. Anyways, love this fight, cannot say that enough. I had a great time. This fight took about 5 minutes and 51 seconds to complete, but I was totally focused the whole time. I really liked this one. Didn't feel too easy, didn't feel too hard. This one out of all of the fights felt the most right. And lastly, we have Doryani. Classically, like the rest of this playthrough, I was a bit nervous about this one, and then once again, as is tradition apparently, this one turned out to be pretty easy overall. I don't know what it is, guys, but active block just seems to be good against end of act bosses so far. Doryani's attacks in phase 1 are almost all blockable except for one. Not even kidding, guys. His fireballs, his laser attacks, even the big wind-up beam, his lightning gems, the fire nova and elemental ground slams, his lightning attack, all of it, guys, all of it. The only attack that isn't blockable are the suns he summons. Those just deal damage over time. However, these suns will detonate when Doryani does his Fire Nova Slam move, and this detonation is actually blockable, both from the suns and Doryani. Yeah, I mean, phase 1 was pretty much a breeze. Phase 2, also mostly a breeze, though definitely a little harder than phase 1. In this crab mech phase, Doryani once again has almost all blockable attacks. Obviously, any standard swings from the fire or frost arms or claws, whatever they're blockable, as well as the fire and frost beams from those things. However, even this machine's scariest attacks are blockable. The big ground slam from detaching its head, or at least what looks like its head, the big flame blast into the ground, the laser turret, its butt laser also completely blockable and interruptible, even its self-destruction attack where it breaks apart and dive bombs, believe it or not, also completely blockable. The only two attacks that aren't blockable is the flame beam from above, that just ignites, and the lightning strikes from above, which I don't even think deal damage, they just inflict the shock ailment on you, I'm pretty sure. There is also a tracking lightning attack that a floating Doryani shoots down, which can deal a lot of damage before he reattaches to the crab mech, but this is actually blockable, though I think you may have to face the direction of where the strikes are hitting the ground, because I got tagged a couple of times when I was blocking during this one. Similar to other end of act boss fights and other ones in this act particularly, this was an easy but lengthier fight at 14 minutes and 49 seconds. But hey, that's just a result of the build doing low damage since I'm, only using shield bash, and Doryani has a ton of health in phase 2, so what can you do? And here we are, guys, Act 4, home stretch for me in this challenge, though I'll see how quickly I can get through this one, and perhaps the interludes will be on the table, but for now, I'm just gonna keep bashing until we get 0.4, which I am super excited about. I honestly think I may try a shield druid based on what they show off here soon and what those Ascendancies look like. Again, there will be a PoE2 Ninja link in the description box if you are interested in seeing what this Frankenstein of a build looks like as I progress. May even have a Mobalytics link at some point just for kicks, but honestly, the run has been mostly a personal challenge that I found funny to do, so I'm trying my best to achieve a deathless campaign run with this meme of a skill. But that's going to be it for this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.